Whoops. Okay, starting live streams, setting up the meeting. We are live.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the April 3rd meeting of the Environment Subcommittee. We've got two bills to discuss, SB 89 and SB 856 we're going to discuss only. But we'll start with SB 89. So Kristen, if you could pull that bill up.
Oh, there's no amendments. Do you want the bill still on the screen?
Um,
I can bring it up.
yeah, sure. Why don't you? So no amendments.
No, I mean, and it just basically it's allowing the department to implement a process to include a notation of an individual's veteran status on a professional license or certificate that's issued by a board under MDE. So I probably said that quicker than I can get this bill up because I didn't have that part of my screen up.
Okay. And no fiscal note.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's a great bill. We should move it.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
Motion to move the bill, please.
Second.
All right. Any questions about the bill? Let me just check to make sure no one has any questions. Okay. Bill has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the bill say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bill passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah, sorry to ask you to pull it up on the screen, but
It's okay. I just I had it in my head. I'll bring up the next bill too.
856, yes. So again, 856, we'll discuss. We won't consider any motion to pass it today, but we do want to discuss it. Okay. All right, Kristen, if you could go through it.
Sure. So I'll just do the short summary and then we can go through the provisions. The bill is requiring MDE in consultation with various state agencies to develop and update as necessary a centralized website that provides information about mold remediation and dampness and an informational pamphlet that includes certain resources. The bill establishes various requirements for landlords relating to mold and rental units, including performing a mold assessment and remediation under certain conditions. And by June 1, 2027, MDE, in consultation with the various agencies, must adopt regulations to establish uniform standards for mold assessment and remediation.
Okay.
And if you wanted to go, if someone wanted just to go to a certain provision, or we could just go through, the bill starts off with
maybe. Yeah, I'm sorry, Kristen. Yeah, maybe I just go through it.
Yeah, so
you can take questions at the end. And I know Mako also wanted to comment on it. So
sure. So definitions are being set forth for dampness, mold remediation. Did I miss one? So subsection B is requiring the department to develop and update as necessary the website and the informational pamphlet. There's provisions being added to the real property article. Definitions are being added and requirements for landlords to provide the pamphlet that's developed under the bill to each tenant in a rental unit on the landlord's property at the time the lease or rental agreement is signed and on request by a tenant of the rental unit. A landlord must perform a mold assessment within 15 days after receipt of a written notice regarding the detection of mold from the applicable local agency enforcing housing and livability codes or a tenant or building occupant. The next paragraph sets forth the requirements for remediation. If the assessment detects mold, the landlord must perform mold remediation within 45 days after the assessment is completed, or if performing mold remediation within the time frame within 45 days is not feasible, then that assessment or that remediation would have to be taken within a reasonable time after the assessment is completed. And then uncodified language is added to require the department in consultation with various state agencies to adopt regulations establishing the uniform standards for mold assessment and mold remediation.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I admit I'm looking at this for the first time this session. May have looked at it in the past, but not this session. So my question, Kristen, is if there is any damage, or if the person has to move out because the mold is untenable and they can't stay there for health reasons, is there anything in this bill that requires the landlord to reimburse the tenant for any of that?
I don't think that's in this bill, but again, I just brought this up today too. It's been a while since I've looked at it, so I would have to look closely at the bill to answer things. I don't think that was in this bill.
Okay. The reason I ask is twofold. One, actually, one of my legislative aides had an issue with mold in her apartment. Went round and round with the landlord, and it actually was so bad that it destroyed some of her furniture. And she was on the hook for that. So that concerns me because that could happen. The other thing is, if they're going to do mold remediation, it stands to reason that there may be times when people have to move out of the building. I mean, we tore down the Legislative Services building over here because of the mold in the building, right? And it sounds like there's no provision for the landlord to assume those costs. Sometimes mold might be a tenant problem, but more than likely it's a building or landlord problem. And I just think that it's not great that there isn't anything in here about bearing the expenses of this with the landlord. The landlord just seems to be able to, continue on, and it's the tenant who is out money and inconvenience and everything else. So I'm concerned about that with respect to this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There isn't anything specific on that particular point. It just says landlord, this is on page 5, shall ensure that the mold assessment and remediation follows the recommended industry guidelines and best practices in state and local laws and regulations. And then there's a reference to the minimum livability code. But yeah, I don't know unless there's anything in industry guidelines and best practices. But
yeah, I don't know. Maybe Kristen could look into that. Maybe if there is something in that, that would be helpful. Otherwise, I think there should be some sort of make whole remedy in this bill. That's
Okay.
my opinion. Anyway,
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as Delegate Lehman said, Foley said, we're just reading this for the first time. I guess a couple of things I'm not sure about here is that, say that you are a landlord with 1 or 2 units, townhouses, condominiums, or something. Does this mean that you have to notify each of those tenants every 2 years? Or does this pertain more towards large apartment complexes as first? Then we've done a lot of work with ADUs around here. So somebody has a house, they built an ADU over a garage or something. Does this mean they have to notify whoever's going to be renting the ADU from them that this applies also? I just
The requirement was from the bill it introduced, it did change when it came over, and that information must be provided at the time the lease or rental agreement is signed or on request by a tenant.
So it just could be, you could have 1 unit that you're renting and you have to provide all this to them.
At the time,
That they
the
rent it.
lease is signed. So there was language there that did say to provide it every 2 years, but the Senate amended that out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Delegate Ruth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify, these amendments were Senate amendments and there were no additional House amendments. Is that correct?
Correct. What's up on the screen is the Senate third reader, and nothing has been proposed by any member. I do think Mako had suggested language in their testimony, but no, we don't have any official amendments.
Thank you.
Okay, and speaking of Mako, I know Mako did want to offer some feedbacks. Carrington?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate letting me join today. Yeah, so counties do have some concerns, and really our primary concerns go down to the uncodified language with the regulations that MDE would be required to do. What we're hearing from our environmental health directors and who really are our technical experts is that they don't have the technical capabilities that would be needed to enforce these sorts of regulations. So a lot of times we may handle the housing code violations, but not necessarily have the expertise to do the mold remediation or the mold identification or that air quality testing. Those are more specialists, and we don't have those on staff, so we would be required to figure out how to hire those. And I think there really is no federal regulation here. There's federal recommendations, so that's where our concern comes from. There would be a fiscal impact to hiring that specialized staff, and again, the enforcement there. It's kind of difficult to determine the exact cost it would be. One of our technical experts is saying 500,000. Some of the larger counties that may be closer to 1 million. So we're still trying to figure that out, but it's hard to determine if we don't know exactly what the regulations will be.
Okay, Carrington, no, thanks for your feedback. Can I just ask you though, is in terms of I guess the county responsibility for enforcement of these standards, maybe I'm missing it, but is that clear from the language here about the establishment of regulations by MDE, or are you assuming that would be that responsibility would be established by them?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So in the fiscal note, it's on page 5. It says the bill is silent as to the enforcement, but DLS's determination is that it would fall on counties because of the public safety article requires a political subdivision where a rental unit is located to enforce. This would assume the local governments are likely responsible for enforcing the standards established by regulation under the bill.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Morgan?
Yeah, I'm listening to what Carrington just said, and I agree. You know, it's very hard. All the counties are strapped for money. They're getting more requirements passed down on them from up here. And then, like I said, I don't know where the health department or anybody in any of these counties has that kind of this. It's not right for say disposable income, but that kind of excess that would be able to carry out and enforce these standards for all the apartment complexes, even in large metropolitan areas. I mean, that would be a bunch of people that they just don't have. I don't think. Is that fair, Carrington?
That's correct. Thank you.
And I guess in terms of enforcement, let's say there's a dispute between a landlord and a tenant over, landlord's response to a complaint about mold or the mold remediation that was done. Is that, I think this came up during the hearing, and it's the answer that was going to, that basically the landlord would have to, I mean, the tenant would have to take the tenant to court. Is there any, Kristen, any inference in here that would be subject to local oversight or MDE oversight, with respect, if there are complaints about mold remediation?
Right. I think, and that's something that we need to look into. And I don't think this is provide anything additional than what a tenant could do to, when there's issues of livability issues within the rental unit. I don't think this goes beyond anything.
Okay. Okay. All right. Again, just Our intent was to review this, to discuss questions about the bill. So we're just going to hold it, but before we
Mr. Chair.
adjourn, yeah, I did want to say, any other questions? Delegate Ruth.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I had my hand up. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I missed it. Okay.
No, I think with my background, the hand doesn't show up very well with my background. I apologize for that. So I'm just looking and again, I haven't looked as closely at this as I should have, but looking at this assessment and I mean the standards and the uncodified language about developing standards, and I'm just, to me, it seems like it relates to the requirements above where we're actually out saying that the landlord has to have a mold assessment and mold remediation in certain circumstances, and that I'm reading it, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, as the intent of that is to develop standards for when the landlord has to do this, and not so much for the counties to have to go out and do it. But maybe I'm reading it wrong.
Well, I think Carrington, maybe could you jump back on? I see you've got your hand raised. You were saying that the fiscal note assumed that because this is, well, anyway, if you could repeat what you said, or elaborate on what you said before about what you think is local responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it does fall on the counties, at least that's DLS's assessment, and we agree with their assessment. Because of enforcing the minimum livability code, this could be, it looks different per county. It could be the housing department, it could be the Department of Health, the Department of Environmental Health within the county. And so we think that they would kind of have to do the enforcement would fall on them, kind of tracking down the mold. And then also some of that testing or assessment could fall on them as well, which also is where we don't have the expertise, because that is a specialized position. That's helpful, Delegate.
Okay.
Thank you. And I did hear what you said, and no offense to DLS because they do a great job, but I have certainly had fiscal notes that were incorrect before. So they have to sometimes make assumptions. And was this this section with developing the standards, was this added in the Senate, or was this original language?
Thank you, Delegate. Oh, sorry, I don't know if that was for me.
Really for Kristen.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so that bill, was part of the bill as introduced.
So we're not going to vote on this today, is that correct?
Correct.
So I could follow up with the sponsor and see if I could find out what the original intent was.
Yeah, I mean, if yes, Delegate Ruth, you could do that if the sponsor says that her intent was that there is no enforcement responsibility placed on local jurisdictions, then perhaps we could have an amendment to the bill to clarify that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oh, Delegate Otto, sorry. Go ahead.
I think we can all agree that mold is an issue and we need to deal with it. Well, I don't feel comfortable that this is a vehicle that's going to fix it right now, but we need to move forward and with something though, because it is a health issue.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions from subcommittee members?
Nope.
All right. Well, we'll wrap up then, and Delegate Ruth, yeah, if you could keep us posted on your follow-up with the sponsor on that issue, and I thank the subcommittee and folks who are on the call for their time today, and we'll see you at voting. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.